Hello, it's Elle, and we're reading The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter. Once upon a time, there were four little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in the sandbank, underneath the root of a very big fir tree. Now, my dear, said old Miss Rabbit one morning, you may go into the fields or down by the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's house. Your father had an accident there. He was going to put a pie by Miss McGregor. Now run along and don't get yourself into mischief. I'm going out. Then old Miss Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the woods into the baker's. She she bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail were the good little bunnies. Went down to the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's house and squeezed under the gate. First he ate some lettuce, then some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But around the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting young cabbages. But he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten which way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages, and the other shoe among the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on all 4 legs and went faster, so that he may have gotten away if he had not unfortunately run into a loose gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons of his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. Peter gave himself up Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears, but his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows, who flew to him in great excitement and begged him to try to free himself. Mr. McGregor found a sheave, which he intended to put on top of Peter, but Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him. Peter rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a watering can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if not have been so much water in it. But Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Suddenly, Peter sneezed. Curdy spew. Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. He tried to catch Peter, who jumped out a window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and was tired of running after Peter. He went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright, and he had no idea which way to go. He was very damp from sitting in that can. After a time had began to wander about, going lippity lippity, not very fast, and looking all around. I'm gonna stop here for right now.